Happy Friday, everyone. I am here to deliver on my promise of talking more about assets and liabilities and showing you guys exactly where you stand. I did this a while back and it was a harsh reality on where I stood financially. So I have taken the last couple hours to draw out diagrams to give you a view of where you are in your finances. So the first thing you're looking at is finances of the poor and the middle class. Of the poor and the middle class. Many of us are poor and don't even know we're poor. And the other half are middle class, thinking they're doing good, keeping up with them Joneses. And really, they're just as bad, if not worse off, than the poor, okay? Right here, you see the poor and the middle class. As their income goes up, so does their expenses. Who's been there? Who's been there? I act like I'm in teaching. I'm so used to teaching in front of a crowd. I'm holding my hand up and thinking you guys are here with me, but never mind that. As their income goes up, so does their expenses, okay? Which is a fatal flaw. Here we're going to take a look at the cash flow of the poor. Income of the poor comes from where? Paycheck from their job. Their expenses include taxes, which comes out their paycheck, food, rent, clothes, and boy, don't they have clothes. Many of the poor people have red bottoms, all of the nicest shoes from Jimmy Choo's. Yes, they have fun and they pay for their transportation. A lot of them driving better than the middle class. Okay, come on down. The asset column is what? Empty. But so are their real liabilities. Empty. Okay, all they have are expenses. Money comes in from the paycheck, spent on the expenses, and normally a day or two after they get paid, there is no more money. So it's back to work every day for the next paycheck. Spend some more money. You're broke again. Back to work. Back to spending on your expenses. And it keeps going and going and going. Let's go on down so we can take a look at the middle class. Let's look at the cash flow of the middle class. Now, let's not forget that as their income go up, so does their expenses. So the middle class are still poor in consciousness. They're still really poor people who ended up with a higher income from their paycheck. So their income comes from their paycheck. Their expenses include, and they differ just a little bit, taxes, now mortgage, not rent, mortgage. Wow, isn't that the American dream, guys? Mortgage. You borrowed a whole lot of money from a bank. Yeah. Taxes, mortgage. Fixed expenses. Now, we'll stop and, of course, fixed expenses would be your insurance, your your light bill, your gas bill, your water bill, your gas. Those are fixed expenses. So your utilities, your transportation, which of course includes your car note from your consumer loan, your car insurance, your gas, your upkeep, etc. Clothing. You dress pretty nice too. You love the dress. You probably one of the sharpest ones going up in your job. Shoes, beautiful. Hair, specifically weave, laid, okay? Food, fun. You love having fun. You love going out on the weekend. You love taking the family places. You love it. And then travel. This is your step up from the poor. You can manage to squeeze in a vacation or two. You go places. You do things. You live in the American dream, right? All right. Let's scroll on down. But their assets, they thought was their mortgage and transportation. But let's pause here. An asset is something that what makes you money. A liability is something that takes money away. Newsflash. This is going to wake a lot of people up. Your mortgage or the home you live in not making you money in the present day. It's a liability. You're spending money. You're not making money. Yes, the home may, and I'm going to say may be growing in value. But you're not making money from it because you're living in it, okay? So your mortgage is not an asset. Take that out your head. And to those who thought your BMW and your Mercedes and your Range Rover and what's the new one they want? Bugatti. Your Bugatti was an asset. Baby, you drove off the lot in a huge liability. Let's head over to liability. So that means that your mortgage is your liability. Your consumer loan, which includes your car notes or any second mortgages or anything of the sort, and then your credit card bills. Yes, when you go and swipe that credit card for those shoes that are oh so cute, they are bad. Those, girl, you look cute and you love it and you smile, but really you're in debt. Your life is filled with liabilities. Yes, it is. Which means your asset column is completely empty. So, who from the outside looks like they're middle class, they make a nice income. A nice income. They spend it all on expenses and liabilities. So they go to work, they get their income from their paycheck. They spend it on all these expenses and all these liabilities, have no more money coming in from anywhere. And within a couple days, they're just as bad as the poor. Poor people can manage to at least save $1 or $2 from time to time. Middle class, as their income goes up, their expenses go up. And they can't get a lick. So they're back to work every day. A job that many of them don't like. Many of them despise. They talk about wanting to do something different. They talk about wanting to be an entrepreneur. When really, everyone's not meant to be an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean everyone's not meant to be financially free. That does not mean that everyone is meant to go to work for somebody else. That's not what that means. So yes, the middle class is in the rat race and don't even know it. It was always so funny to me when you see people, they have nice, beautiful homes, drive that flashy car, and they trying to figure out every month how they go pay their bills. Let's keep going, guys. Let's go down here to the note I wrote. The fatal flaw of the middle class is they don't really know what an asset is. They have been taught that their mortgage and their car is an asset. As their income goes up, they are deeper in debt and worse off than the poor. They have absolutely no assets. I added that word in there. That's not really there. And no liabilities. They work to purchase life novelties and the quote-unquote American dreams of home ownership, flashy cars, clothes, etc., and continue to work daily to purchase more and to pay their bills. They are in a perpetual rat race of working, paying bills. Working, paying bills. And they think, because they take a vacation or two, that they're ahead of the game when they are really still on that same rat's wheel as the poor. Let's move on, guys. We're going to head on to the wealthy now, okay? But before we head on, do you guys see yourself in either one of these? I've seen myself in both. Not that long ago. Seen myself in both. It's a hard reality, but you have to be honest with yourself. Let's head on to the wealthy. The wealthy. As their income increases, their expenses remain the same. Yeah, you see some quote-unquote wealthy people with Mercedes and all these nice cars and nice houses. There's a catch to that. Because as their income goes up, their expenses really remain the same. They can afford these things when they purchase them. Let's come on. Let's go to the cash flow of the wealthy. Their income comes from dividends, interest, rental income, and royalties. They're not waiting on a paycheck. But you didn't see entrepreneurship necessarily either, guys, okay? Their expenses, man, you see how their expenses are lower than the poor and the middle class? Crazy, isn't it? Taxes, food, clothing, and fixed expenses, such as the utilities. And may I mention that their taxes are actually generally lower. There's always a loophole, and we know that loophole over here. Okay. Let's look at their asset list: stocks, bonds, notes, real estate, and intellectual property. Okay? And then their liabilities: mortgage. Oh, they don't have one. Ha! Isn't that funny? They don't have one, and they probably can afford it. And card notes. They don't have one. Now, I know you see this arrow drawn from assets to income. Their income is generated from their assets. And when they make income, they purchase more assets. And when those assets generate more income, they purchase more assets. Expenses, those expenses are the expenses we have to have. But they chose to pay cash for their home or car note or their car. And then for their mortgage, if they have a mortgage, they know that they have enough income coming in from the assets that though they don't go to work a single day, they can pay it. Okay? Instead of the wealthy's expenses going up when their income increases, the wealthy reinvest it into more assets, producing more income, which produce more assets and again more income. When the wealthy wish to purchase a liability, which is not to say they don't, they do, because even if they don't have a car note, the home they or a mortgage, the home they live in is still a liability. And the car they drive, even for cash, is still a liability. But they ensure that they have enough assets to cover the cost of their liability. They don't go out and buy this liability to look great with not enough assets, okay? All right. You guys notice the difference? The wealthy's list, period, the longest list they have is the assets. So when you hear the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because we both digging ourselves in whatever hole we're in. The poor is digging themselves into the hole of being poor because they have no assets. And their mind doesn't tell them to get assets. And their parents didn't tell them to get assets. And their parents didn't tell them to get assets. So it's not your parents' fault. It's a perpetual rat race and a generational curse. But you can break it. The same is true for the wealthy. Their parents taught them, or either they learned on their own because education was important to them. And I don't mean necessarily traditional education in a traditional school, because many of you who watch me on my own channel know that that's not a main focus of mine. Every time I look at Sallie Mae, I remember that I wish I had not attended college. But that's a long other subject. Okay. All right, guys. So the next question is, how to go from poor, middle class to wealthy? Listen, guys, it's not as hard as many believe, but it is going to require sacrifice, and that's what separates those from who will always be in that rat race from those who are going to jump off of the wheel, okay? Because many of you aren't going to be willing to sacrifice. Many of you care more about what the next person thinks about where you work, what you do, how you dress, what you drive, where you live, than what's really in your account and your freedom, okay? For those that care, keep watching. To get out of the rat race, your income must come from both. So I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not. Actually, the smart business person will keep their job until they have enough assets that even if their business fails, they're great. And I'm talking about me. You guys know I quit my job. The smart one, take it from somebody who knows, will keep a job and develop enough assets. I learned the hard way. So I'm passing this lesson on to you, okay? So I was so caught up in my ego and what it'll look like that I have a business going back to work and I have a business of doing this, that I never did. But it has to come to a point that you say, screw the broke people, and they're broke. The ones with money aren't judging you for doing it, okay? Screw them, and I'm going to do what I have to do for me. So your income will come from both your paycheck and from the assets that you're going to start building. It's going to come in two forms. You start lowering your expenses to the basics. Your fixed bills, your rent if you don't own, your food, and your clothes. You start building your assets in the form of stocks, which I would kind of, if you get stocks now, go with, this will probably be the best time. They're cheaper and just sit them there. Bonds, notes, real estate, intellectual property, and businesses where you don't have to be there. Because if it's a business that you have to be there, all you created was another job. That's all you created. And then as far as liabilities, you begin reducing your liabilities. If you have a mortgage, begin cutting it in half and paying bi-weekly to save on the interest and pay it off in half the time. Pay off your car or trade for one you could purchase outright, and pay off consumer loans and credit cards. You're going to take your money from your assets that you're going to start building and using that to produce more income. And your income will continue to pay off your liabilities, okay? Here it is. If needed, get another source of income if you must in the form of a job, but ensure that it goes only to purchasing your assets while your paycheck goes to paying off your liabilities. As your income begin to go up, and it will because your assets bring you money, okay, as your income begin to go up, keep your living expenses the same and lower. No more keeping up with the Joneses. They are really broke. It looks good, but they have a home with a mortgage, which is equal to a liability, and a nice car with a note, which is equal to a liability. It looks good, but it's not. They are on that same rat's wheel as you. It's time for you to get off, and it's time for you to sacrifice. Okay? All right, guys, if you have any questions, email me, or I'm going to start holding wealth seminars, and we can figure something out on how we can work together, and I can help you if you need more information from going from where you are to where you want to be.